Our next storm system just keeps growing in intensity and actually slowing down, increasing the flood risk. So let's start off with the overall water vapor transport index and show you what we're talking about. Here's the setup for today, because we're going to be dealing with that upper level low that's finally going to be on the move, that left all the heavier snows in a good portions of Wisconsin. That's going to be lifting out and moving on into Canada. That opens the door for the south winds that will be streaming across in a good parts of the southern plains, increasing that moisture content in those regions. At the same time, we're watching a powerful cold front that's going to be coming in from the Pacific Northwest, tapping into that warm sector, and it's going to be pretty warm. So they're going to be starting to see those elevated temperatures starting to rise once those south winds start to kick in a good part of the central plains as well as into the southeast. It's all waiting for the arrival of that stronger cold front, where it's just been plenty of cold out here along the coastal regions into Washington and Oregon and much of the Pacific Northwest. They just can't catch a break with all the colder and just chillier rain out in that region. But we do have what they call a conditional risk in place across a good part of West Texas, western Oklahoma into western Kansas. A marginal risk for storms in and around the Nebraska areas, portions of South Dakota into Iowa. Now, what is a conditional risk is basically we have a strong capping inversion, and understanding the cap, we talk about it all the time on this channel, but here's a good picture on how the cap is actually formed. Essentially, we have a lot of mountain regions out here into Colorado, into Mexico. Those mountains are about 8,000 feet in elevation. And you can actually see they lower in elevation with a downsloping wind. And when they do, about 4 to 7,000 feet, that creates a kind of a warm air aloft. And as we have those south winds, and you pull it in from the Gulf of Mexico, that warmer air lifts up and forms right under that boundary layer, basically forming the capping inversion. So as you get these updrafts try to penetrate that boundary layer, it's not able to, and it squashes the thunderstorms like a pancake. And so for today, all conditions are prime for severe weather, but it's labeled as a conditional risk because we have a strong capping inversion in place. So as those updrafts try to lift and penetrate that cap, then you basically have squashes them like a pancake and you get little to next to nothing. But if those updrafts are strong enough and are able to start to weaken the cap and actually penetrate that boundary layer, then they can form into towering supercell thunderstorms and create those large hail producers and those damaging winds. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel. It's also important to hit the like button as well. It definitely helps out more than you know. And if you're in the market for a weather station, I definitely highly recommend the Tempest Weatherflow weather station. The cool thing about it is it's all a 5-in-1 system. It's all solar. So it's kind of a set it and forget it process. Once you set it up, it only takes like 10 minutes to install. It's basically runs itself. I've actually had mine for 3 years now and really haven't even touched it. It just kind of cool to look at every single day and get all the weather features and the weather history that it all provides. And this data actually sends it back to the weather models to help get a little bit more better accuracy in the forecast. So if you'd like to purchase one at a discount, you can actually use my discount code, a 10% off and free shipping. And here it is right here, but I'll actually have a link in the description below so you can actually click on it and possibly order one for yourself. So let's take a look for tomorrow, because we're going to have a lot more moisture feeding in from the Gulf of Mexico. You can see all these darker reds here. That just basically says it's increasing the moisture content down in these regions, as we'll be watching this boundary kind of move in. So as it does, it's still going to be able to form some severe storms, but all indications are we do have still another conditional risk, especially further south into West Texas. So we can see the marginal risk in place. And you also have a slight risk in place for portions of western Oklahoma, western Kansas, as well as into portions of Iowa. Now, these are going to be some big time hail producers, again, if they're able to penetrate that boundary layer. So the best probability of breaking the capping inversion would be probably further north in the northern Kansas, especially in Nebraska here into Iowa, where you have more probability of breaking the cap, producing some of those larger hail producers and that damaging winds. Because if we take a look at the latest high resolution guidance on the rainfall, where it could be just over the next 48 hours, you can see further south into Texas and Oklahoma, it really doesn't have much of anything. So the resolution models are already kind of hinting at it, that the capping inversion is more or less going to win out and going to be able to squash those thunderstorms like pancakes and nothing will happen. But the probability is much higher for the cap to break once we head up into northern portions of Kansas, especially into southeastern Nebraska, going into northwestern portions of Missouri here, and heading into Iowa. So definitely be on high alert. And then just kind of heavier rains move back in the picture for portions of Wisconsin as well as into Michigan here. But the setup for Thursday is getting a little bit more interesting further south, because like I mentioned, it's going to be moving across, but the upper level winds look to start to slow down, or if not stall, for a short period of time. So all indications are it's probably going to be moving across the Dallas-Fort Worth area sometime during the day on Thursday, but then start to slow down, if not stall, right there in and along the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It could be just to the southeast of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but these water content values really start to increase. We've got several days to increase the moisture levels into these areas, and we're looking at rainfall potential of the water content values approaching the 2-inch per hour range as the cold front stalls. And it looks to be kind of an overnight setup too, and those could be notorious for big time rain producers in this region. But we also have to be concerned about severe storms, because I do feel the cold front, with the stalling of the cold front, it's going to be able to help erode that boundary layer. And so by the time it moves into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or like just points to the southeast, especially into East Texas, then you have a much stronger probability, and all indications are you're able to break the cap, and there's nothing going to be able to stop these updrafts from towering to supercell thunderstorms. So you have much greater probability of it happening down here into East Texas, into north portions of Louisiana, especially into Arkansas here, with some higher hail content, large to possibly even very large hail within this region, into the evening, into the overnight hours, and lighter activity as you swing further north into portions of Illinois. But we already have a slight risk for excessive rainfall, where the boundary tends to maybe kind of stall out, or at least slow down. It's basically essentially from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, points to the northeast, and the northeast Texas into Arkansas, and swinging across into western Tennessee, and it does include portions of the Memphis area. This is the main culprit of the area that could be seeing some higher rain content, if even not some flooding rains within this boundary, and lighter amounts as you swing up into Illinois and heading up into Wisconsin during the Thursday timeframe. And in that boundary, you can see it actually doesn't move that much, so it shifts a little bit further to the east. So now the setup is into portions of Louisiana, back into Jackson, Mississippi, and heading up into western Tennessee regions, but still could see some heavier rains in and around the Houston area into East Texas. This will be the day on Friday as this moves across, so it's probably going to be more of a heavier rain threat versus a severe threat on the day on Friday. But the latest the latest NAM model is pretty bullish on this particular setup, with the stalling out. So whenever this cold front is going to be able to slow down with the lighter upper level winds, that's where you're going to be increasing these rainfall totals, and some of these could be some isolated pockets of flooding rain potential. So don't be surprised if you live down here into portions of southeast of the Metroplex of Dallas. You could be looking at 1, 2, 3, even maybe 4 inches of rainfall. Is definitely not out of the picture with this type of setup going into East Texas, maybe in portions of Central Texas, maybe down in the Waco area. Those portions of Texas could be hit with some very heavy rain And again, it's really along these boundaries and portions of Louisiana, especially into Arkansas, heading up into Missouri here, into southern Illinois. This is kind of your main culprit where that cold front is going to be stalling out at times. And the slower it moves and the longer it just sits there, the more rain it's going to be able to produce in that region. But the cold front is going to be finally going to be on the move heading into this weekend, and it's got some pretty cold air. I mean, the AO goes negative, the NAO goes negative, and the EPO goes negative. I mean, you got all the teleconnections really starting to align here at, towards the end of April for a pretty strong cold blast for April standards. And look at the 540 line. It drops pretty far south. That basically brings the freezing line further south into portions of Kansas. You're talking about possibly some freezing conditions for them, but the heavier rains will be moving across Tennessee into West Virginia, back into Ohio regions, and then further south into portions of Alabama, going into the Georgia region. And here's the temperature. So all these areas in blue are going to be experiencing possibly a freeze coming up on Saturday morning. So it's going to be a pretty chilly air mass for April standards. And then, of course, modifying as you push further southbound. And as we go into that Sunday time frame, that rain just continues to shift off into the east. Now it's going to be aligned across portions of upstate New York in and around the New Jersey area, New York City, right along the coastal regions as that low continues to move out and eventually heading towards Maine. It's got some snow going to be flying on the backside and around portions of Canada there. But yeah, the cold air continues to press southbound, and it will pull a little bit further south. You can see widespread 40s and even 30s up here into Tennessee. Probably some late season frost is definitely not out of the questions in this part of the country. So definitely be on high alert and maybe have to cover the plants, with this, stronger April cold blast that is coming. And it doesn't look like it's going to be just a 2-day wonder. It lingers for a while. So not only this weekend, but it's going to be lingering, especially in the eastern 2/3 with that EPO continuing to remain negative, with colder conditions to continue to press further south. So it should be well below average for this time of April into a good part of the central and eastern 2/3 of the U.S., even heading in the next week from the 23rd through the 27th time frame, while it starts to warm up a little bit along our western states. And then the same thing continues until the end of the month. So it's not just a 2-day deal. This lasts for an extended period of time, with a cooler air, if not chillier at times, going into the end of the month to end April. So it looks to be, once this cold front moves in by this weekend, it's going to be hanging around for a good solid 4 to possibly 6 days within this region with below average temperatures. And here's your rain prospects over the next 7 days. So again, the Pacific Northwest just gets inundated. There's really no let up in sight for them, especially along these coastal regions. Chillier rains for you, and then heavier snow amounts actually in portions of the mountains of the Intermountain West. And then here's the boundary setting up with that cold blast, with the cold front, and where it stalls, and that's the culprit. It could be some heavier rain. So definitely be on high alert in these areas, and wouldn't be surprised from pockets of flood watches might be issued over the coming days as this event gets closer in time. So I appreciate you watching. And here's the snow. So we're still talking snow. It's still cold, right, with that cold blast coming in. But the snow really is going to be aligned portions well to the north, where it should be this time of year, but still places into Minnesota, maybe places into Wisconsin. Still going to be able to be into that snow setup and pick up possibly some more snow for that region before we can actually say finally goodbye to some of those winter-like snows up there in that region. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update while I protect you before and after the storm.